The proposal are multifold. It looks to the question of assisting businesses in the first instances, that government must intervene in terms of the government's SARIA insurances. Secondly, is to look to the question of the workers that are being impacted and to ensure that there is an income replacement. And in looking to the whole package, so it was a question of ensuring that essential services production are being restored so that people are not running out of medicine, for an example, and ensuring that the income replacement is allowed, and that we look and consider the question of access to the retirement fund for income replacement, to the extension of the TERS for those sectors that will not be affected, looking to the relief for ordinary other people, but also to look to the sectors that will be affected in a repurposed kind of a relief fund that should be given to small businesses so that they can be able to be sustained. And in that, to look to a number of packages, for an example, in relations to tax rebate. So there is a number of proposals that we have asked NETLEC to consider, including putting some money to the CCMA, as we know, that the workload for people who are going to go to the CCMA to be complaining that they have not been paid during this particular period, to ensure that mediation, conciliation, consultation, and everybody at least got something on the table.
So we're talking here abandoning the austerity framework.
Indeed, the question of the austerity framework is a long term. It's not going to be solved, as you know, how slow government may move. It's not going to be solved this week, next week. The issue that needed to be done must be done tomorrow, must be done a day after tomorrow. So there has to be expedited ways of dealing with this issue. Government needs to be meeting. Government needs to devise agent mechanism. Business itself, big business should be able to give a lifeline to the small businesses in terms of ensuring that they get the supply, sometimes on a credit, because there's no money available for them to be able to be sustainable. So it's a combination of many, not only looking to government, but looking to big businesses, looking to the banks, the question of relief in terms of payment, so that at least something is put on the table, people are not panicking, the question of food security is guaranteed one way or another, and people who are able to buy, they are able to do so, and those that are vulnerable, they are being assisted. So we're looking for an agent package, and we hope that in the next 2 or 3 days, if everybody come on board, we should be able to put something that can give confidence to our people. We think it's possible. We think it's feasible.
Yeah. And I want us to talk about the basic income grant as well, Mr. Ntshalintshali, and I'll bring you back to discuss that with me, how feasible it is. But if you don't mind, I want to check in with my colleague Dasan Thatia. He is bringing us aerial footage of some areas in some parts of KwaZulu-Natal. Dasan, you are showing us the highway now. Speak to us about, it looks fairly empty. It's not really busy, and one wonders if this has something to do with people staying at home. Just explain to us what you are seeing and why the highway, which I imagine on a normal day is often busy at this time.
It is, Clement. It is eerily quiet right now. We were just discussing with my colleague in Kaniso as well as the pilot Tremaine here that it's not often that you see the N3 highway, a road that is where you often find yourself stuck in traffic. If you find that there are roadworks, it is dead quiet with the exception of a few cars, and that is because as you travel further on there are closures on the N3, which is as a result of the protest action that was taking place, and it's really a safety measure. But now what's also complicated indicating this is that we've seen from traffic authorities that there are so many versions of what's going on. There's fake news that is compounding this problem. But right now we've received confirmation from traffic authorities that most of the N3 is still closed. What you're looking at, though, Clement, is beyond the few cars that you're seeing here and the quietness, is millions of rands being lost. And that's exactly what this is, because that's where this N3 goes. It transports items from warehouses, it takes items from Durban to Joburg and back and forth, and it's normally a very busy route as we discussed. And that, what you're seeing now, is basically the direct impact on our economy, because very few trucks are moving. I'm spotting one, a tanker on the left there, but most of the others are parked off. It's not just that they are taken off the roads because of safety concerns, also the fact that many of them were torched during these riots and leading up to it. It's an industry that had already taken a beating even long before the riots we're seeing now, because there were several trucks, batches of them, that were torched at Moy River. There were huge protests that had taken place, violent ones, that had seen the industry taking the beating, drivers losing their jobs, vehicles being torched, cargo being lost, and millions of rands going down the drain as a result of that.
Yeah, and I imagine, Dassen, there are some people that are still scared to use that important road because of what happened, particularly last weekend when there was just disruptions on the road. Some cars, particularly trucks, were being torched there. So I imagine some people are trying to be quite cautious to use, other back routes if they are even available, and avoid using this particular road, given what happened a couple of days ago.
Exactly. There are huge safety concerns. It's not just on the N3, Clement. We were in Empangeni at the start of these riots, and when we were driving back, it was an absolutely hairy situation, because you didn't know what was going to happen at the next bridge. You didn't know what was going to happen when it turned dark. There were obstructions. Vehicles were damaged. Our vehicle was stoned on that highway. We heard similar reports on the N3 as well. It was just too unpredictable. And the advice that was given fairly early on, even before the formal road closures that we are seeing, was that don't travel unless absolutely necessary. I saw such a very, actually what looked like a really sad image was the Moy River, the Marion Hill toll plaza that we passed a little while ago. I think you may have been live on our visuals at that time. It looks like a ghost town. That's normally a place that you get trapped, you get stuck in traffic on. It's a place where you know that you're going to spend some time, especially during the holiday season. And right now, it's just completely deserted. And this is a picture that I think many people in the city would really not want to see for the near future, especially if you look beyond the obvious and you look at what it's doing to our already bruised economy.
Yeah, Dassen, we'll come back to you a little later on. You've shown us the queues at the Westville Shopping Centre in Durban. You are showing us what's happening on some of the critical major roads in KwaZulu-Natal, and the impact, really, of what we saw a couple of days ago. We'll come back to you, Dassen. Let me bring back Bheki Ntshalintshali, the General Secretary of Cosatu. We're talking about this disaster relief fund that they are calling for to deal with the massive socio-economic fallout from this crisis. Mr. Ntshalintshali, thank you so much for your patience, for waiting while we see the aftermath of the crisis in KwaZulu-Natal. I see that the discussion about the basic income grant is back. The ANC government has been dragging its feet on this, partly because government says it doesn't have money. What are the chances that this will now actually be realized?
It's difficult to say, because, as you know, that the basic income grant has a long history. The Taylor Commission talked about this thing more than 15 years ago. Governments sometimes look at it, got an appetite, but with the austerity measures, then they retreat. Our issues are that on the income, basic income grant should be seen as investment, should be seen as throwing money to the economy, and that if the economy thrives, then the cost of introducing basic income grant will not be as scary as it is. And we also know that many countries in the world, which South Africa is party to it, in the discussion in the ILO, the question of comprehensive social grant is an issue that every country in the world supports, including South Africa. And our only issue is to have that universal social protection, and it needed to be funded. And the statistics and evidence suggest that it is not expensive to introduce basic income grant. The issue is that at what level will you put it? Because the question of covering everybody in the world agree it is possible. The level of as how much, that's what we need to be engaging and debating. It's a long overdue debate, and I think government need just to be honest, need to debate this issue. And there are issues within the government. I mean, there are ministers within the government who fully support this thing. They might not be the influential because maybe Treasury will come and veto these issues. It's long overdue, and we should not be debating it any further. How long will it take is very difficult, but we think people will come to senses that these things needed to be addressed now. We can't postpone it further.
Yeah, and have they given you an indication, just lastly, Mr. Ntshalintshali, has government given an indication and a commitment that they will go and reprioritize funds and find the money for this kind of relief?
It was not as clear as that, but the suggestions and everything come out of meeting from yesterday, that we can't just sit back and complain that we don't have money. Every constituency has to make a contribution, and we agree that we must speed up the processes. We need to meet almost every second day to come up with solutions. Taking from the evidence and the encouragement is how Network has done with the COVID-19 up to so far, there are positive signs that everybody willing, and with the president backing up the question of this intervention, which is on its own way is a disaster. I think there are hopes that something will happen positively, but we can't leave it to that good faith. I think we need to mobilize, we need to lobby, and we think some people with a lot of evidence to make these cases will come therefore.